Namaskar, good evening, and how are you doing? And today is very special. You know why it's special. I know so many people are waiting for today's evening. और आज की शाम बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट है, बहुत ही खूबसूरत है, बहुत ही स्पेशल है. I always say it's an epic finale today of Oops, I said it, love stories. And the two people who are coming here, they're very, very special to me. And I love them. I love them. And I've been fortunate that I've been to their home at Austria, Vienna. So you are already know the Facebook is all buzzing about it. And I'm sure so many of you are there on the show already, and the numbers are going up. I can see slowly and slowly. And today, the Christmas couple, let me introduce. We have Padmashri Shovana Narayan ji. Didi, how are you?
Very
And
well,
so on
Alok.
top of it. Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
Today Herbert and I are meeting you as we have been living all our lives long distance.
Let me interrupt. Despite what some of my friends were saying, you will survive as long as you are distant, but you will have difficulties when you are together. We proved the contrary. So it stays on. The togetherness is there. And the togetherness is always has to be there, not only physically, but mentally.
Mentally and emotionally. Yeah.
Emotionally, absolutely. And today's this finale is very special because I believe you are the most epic couple together, and I call you the Christmas couple because Sir is sitting there in Vienna and you are here, and yet both of you are so together. And as Sir said, that you have to be mentally and, as you said, emotionally together. Sir, I would like to know what does love mean to you? Although you have already said in a few words, but yes, when you saw Shobnadi, what was love? What did love mean to you at that time?
You are asking a very, how shall I say, pragmatic type, a very emotional question. And I don't know, I think I'm not very emotional. I think I might be wrong to that extent. And let me say, it was not what the French call coup de foudre, love at first sight or something like that. Only I found her, of course, good looking, that's something else. But I found her an interesting person. And this characteristic of Shobna being an interesting person, I've now experienced for more than 40 years. Is it 40 years? 40 years, yeah. That we have met 40 plus a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
So the point is, emotion is in there, but it has also to go beyond emotion into rationality. Here speaks the trained, the educated, not lawyer, but diplomat. Emotion, yes, but also knowing the other, relying in the other, and trusting the other.
Right, sir. Right, very correctly, sir. Because as we were doing all these episodes, I felt that couples are very rational and very practical. I think that is where love survives. That is what I'm learning. That you just do not need to be emotional, but you need to be very practical in life, and then love survives. Didi, how do you describe love, and what was your reaction when you first saw Sir, and how did you fall in love?
Well, I saw him and I did not see him when I first saw him. Because this was at a performance of mine. So he was there amongst the audience. So I saw him, but I did not see him because when it was meet the artist after the performance, I had disappeared through the back door. So that was it. So, but it was, we met a couple of days later, courtesy a common friend of ours. And so I found him interesting, very good to talk to, but more that there was something sincere about him. The vibration, the vibrations of a person. A person can be extremely intelligent, which Herbert is very interested in everything, very intelligent, but there has to be a vibration which is of which vibrates sincerity. And that's what I kept on getting every time we met. That here he was a sincere person, meant what he said, did not this thing, and extremely. So that's how slowly and we had met a few times here and there. Then slowly we got to know each other, and I found him an extremely uh, a beautiful person. Let me talk about it. A very
Correct.
lovely person, sincere, very honest, extremely honest, not only to himself but to everyone around, extremely. And I think those were the initial things which made you, sort of respond to the person. And then
Ab-
later on, of course, the emotion, it grew into emotion, it grew into this thing, and then it survived. Then the whole question was, he was a diplomat. He was at that time the deputy head of mission over here. He had been posted back, and that was the last. We met in the last phase of his posting, and then but then and the correspondence those days were not we never had cell
so
phones.
easy.
We never had the luxury of mobile phones and things like that, or call in an instant. I mean, those were trunk call days, and trunk calls were expensive. I wanted to use a word, but I refrained myself for being that they were really expensive. So three
Sure.
minutes call was something, but in spite of the distance, that so what you asked, what is the relationship to both of us, and I think I can say that for him, it means that you not only love each other, you're emotional about it, but there's a lot of trust, a lot of faith, a lot of sincerity.
Let me
Right.
add one thing. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, sir.
Schopen was
Yes.
talking about the financial aspect of the communications. Let me talk very simply about the practical one. I was somewhere far away. You book a call. They tell you, yeah, yeah. 1 hour later, you remind the extension about the call. Yeah, yeah, so you get it, you got it. Another hour later, it still hasn't come. You remind them again, say, what call? What are you talking about? So, the whole thing, just to get together on extension, at that time I was in Africa, it was rather complicated and a certain amount of stress on patients.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Also,
And it is
letters took 14 to 15 days to reach. It was a not instant,
oh,
So letters also took
absolutely.
15 days to reach and 15 days to come back and things like that. So communication was not easy, and yet for love to survive with with, with this long distance, and the distance was not a few hundred miles; it was thousands of kilometers, and plus, no, and this kind of a communication. Uh,
Communication, yes.
yeah, so it meant a lot. And the fact that, and I said, here it is tests one's faith also. How faithful are you to the other person? Because there are many people who are willing. Now, it also depends on the mental stability. Because friends and the so-called people are
Yes.
ready to say all kinds of things, and put the fear of God. And so the question
Okay.
is, how do you take it? So I'm sure Herbert must have gone through it, which I was
Yes.
going through. And so, but okay, let people talk. Let people. In fact, after we got married, I remember my sister coming back because we when we got married, and I was back here in my job, and dancing, and he was there. And so she said, oh, people are saying that marriage is on the rocks and it's not surviving and they're going in for a divorce.
Oh,
I said, really?
okay.
I said, oh, really? I think the people know better than I do, because or even Herbert does, because according to us we are together, but according to people we are splitting apart. Well, good luck to them. Let them wait. That's it.
Yeah. And it's been
Why
40 years. 40 years. Yeah.
exactly? So
40
why
years.
bother my head about it? Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So you saw Shobna Di dancing, and you knew that she was in the administrative government position. But as such, in India at that time, when Didi was dancing, it was a little kind of okay dancing and everything. So what was your reaction, and what did the people around you talk about a dancer and administrative government officer? So, how was the reaction? What did you hear about her? Yet you fell in love with her.
I fell in love with her irrespective. Of course, I met her as a dancer. But then I was also aware that, this was the first thing which really puzzled me when she was introduced at this particular performance. And, oh, yeah, famous Kathak dancer who has a master's in physics. I said, huh? Kathak dancer, master's in physics? Interesting. And who is also with the Indian Ordnance Account Service. I thought, huh? What is that? So my reaction would be interesting to meet the person. That interest now, as I said, has continued since more than 40 years. Uh, Look, this point whether an artist can also have a second life is something which, for me and for many people, is completely normal. One of the greatest conductors in the last century, or then, Dr. Carl Böhm, had a degree in law. He didn't practice. And he and Karajan, both Austrians, were the top people, top conductors in the 50s, 40s, 50s. So this did not bother me. The issue was, can we make our union, and which we could, with everybody accepting the fact, and that's what it was.
Right, right. But Didi, did you really say yes to her in one go, or you had your thoda nakra, thoda sa, having a little
There was
air? Did you?
no. There was no nakra at all. I'm quite straightforward like this. No nakra business. I
Right.
don't. So even in my dance performances, you will not see me doing a jhatkas and nakras, etc. Because that's not me. And so I mean, hi and this and that. No way. I am not. So, and. So for me, well, of course, I had my doubts. I remember telling him once, I said, my mental image of a Westerner is that they get married and they leave something and then they get married again. And so,
Yes.
blah, 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 blah. So he says, oh, really? So he says, I think you should come down to Vienna. So I was on my way. I had my performances in other parts of Europe. So I made a stopover at Vienna for a couple. Met his parents, mother. At that time, the father had died, who had been married for donkey's years till his death, and I met all his friends who had been married happily for donkey's years without having split up. So he says, "Look, it's not that everything. I don't know what you've been fed, but maybe all the junkies, junk news, etc. So it's not like that." And well, that's it. So I did have my doubts in the beginning. Like, I'm sure he must have had his doubts also. But that whether I would, yeah, this thing. Also the other thing was that I did not want to leave the country. I did not want to leave
Yes.
both my careers. I had two full-fledged careers. So I did not want to leave that. So he he was okay with it. He says, "Look, I don't want a ambassador's wife to be a wife, and that who's going." She says, "I've been doing my diplomatic life all alone. That's not a hassle. I want a person as a wife who is with whom I share a life. with whom I am
Right.
emotionally, mentally together. Not that I need
Yes.
a hostess or something like that.
Let me
Yes,
let me
sir. You wanted to
add.
say something?
Where?
But yeah, yeah.
Let me add. Let me add. Anyway, of course, in the beginning there was always the hope that we could be together more. But then I realized her problems as a civil servant and as an artist. As an artist, I told her at a certain moment, she will remember what I'm going to say now. I told her, look, talk to your agent and block your performances in half a year. And then you are agent, what's agent? Agent for ourselves. So, etc., etc. At a certain moment, and that's my major point for that. I realized that if I would ask her to join me permanently, physically in that way, and if she would have done it, she would have become a different person than the person I liked and I fell in love with. So one has to, I think that's one thing we both of us learned. You have to accept the other one. You have to accept what she is, or what he is, what he wants to do. You should both try to get together as much as you can, but accept the characteristics of the other person.
Beautifully said, sir. Beautifully said. The acceptance and the ability to not let that person change for one's
Nature change,
ease,
yeah.
or yeah, that is major, because usually when a man or a woman they get married, the household and everybody wants the woman to adapt to that household thing. So that becomes very difficult. And nowadays, women are getting very independent. So it becomes really difficult to sustain that love. Sir and Didi, you have
No, I
children.
want to, I
And
want to, I want to say something.
yes,
It is that it is not adapting and changing to the household. You have to, I
yeah,
think, in both cases, uh, from his side and from my side, we were as respectful and as I hope I was as dutiful a daughter-in-law as my mother-in-law would want it and my sisters-in-law want it. And for me, I know that my mother-in-law, my mother, said, who would think he's a foreigner? I don't think I could have asked for an Indian son-in-law who could be better than him, because he is better than any Indian son-in-law. So that is where she said, I don't feel that he's a foreigner, not at all,
yes,
because of the kind of how he gelled into our family. And the whole thing was that the family values were the same, exactly the
right,
same way. His family values and my, it's exact, because basic values don't change at all. The even Herbert will supplement it, even when he was grown up, married, and everything. And when we used to come, so obviously we used to park ourselves with my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law.
yes,
And he used to say, before going out, we are invited by his friends for some party in the evening and all. And we'd say, Mama, don't wait for us. We are not there for dinner and this and that. So, and at about 12 or 1 at night, both of us are creeping inside the house. My mother-in-law would look out there, and then her lights were on and say, oh, you're back. Okay. And then her light would switch off and she'd go to bed. You know, now imagine that happens here, but it happens there.
there also.
Yeah. It's
Family
not that
values are same.
exactly.
Uh, but how many marriages did you have? Because there must be an Indian marriage and there must be a Christian marriage or the white marriage, as they say. So how many marriages did you both have, and where all?
Three.
Very
Three.
modestly, three. Very modestly, three. Same woman, not different
Same
Yes,
man.
different. Same man. No, look, let me say again very practically. Of
Yeah.
course, I wanted a church wedding. Of
Yeah.
course, I understand that for Shovna and for her family, a traditional wedding would be the thing done. And third one is we needed a paper. And there's fortunately something which at that time was very much there already. Now it's being talked about again, the Special Marriage Act. The Special Marriage Act functioned for us very well. It gave Shovna and me our paper, our certificate, and so we lived on happily with that. Shovna had a certain, you might tell your story about your passport and the name and traveling together at a certain moment. Shovna,
Yeah,
remember?
I'll do that. Yes, I do remember that. How can I forget it?
Yeah,
And
there's an episode of your passport also, Didi,
yes, yes.
which you have to share with the audience. What was that
No,
episode with the passport thing?
the episode with the passport was Herbert was at that time post ambassador somewhere, and he was also co-accredited in many other countries. So when was visiting him, I was a holiday wife, by the way, my a vacation. So whenever I could book leave, I could go and be there for 2 weeks. So we were actually all our career life, we were meeting each other every quarter for 2 weeks at a time. So, maximum 3 weeks, depending on our leave, but not more. So I was there, and then this man said at the pass, the VIP, ambassadors coming, they get this special red carpet treatment, and so they took my passport. They expected early. Actually, the whole thing started earlier. That
Right.
the confusion of that gentleman over there at the protocol head chap. We had got off the plane in Mauritius. This was in Mauritius. He was also accredited ambassador to country, and so he had got off the plane. Now the red carpet treatment for the ambassador was he was being taken this way. The rest of the plane road was going this way. So I walked behind him, and of course, I was very traditionally dressed, like a good Austrian ambassador's wife, not in a costume, that was, the skirt, blouse, etc., that kind of a thing that they call costume. I was in a sari, very, very traditional Austrian. Wouldn't you say that? Sari. So I walked behind him. So this man, he said, it makes an this thing that side. So Herbert looked and said, my wife. So his involuntary reaction was, are you sure? I he I started smiling. I wanted to laugh, but I started smiling. And so Herbert, he looked a little taken aback. He said, yes. Then when we went into the VIP room, and then because with my very Austrian skin, which is brown, completely brown, very very, and everything. So then his passport. So Herbert's passport came out, the red Austrian diplomatic passport, and I took out of my passport the blue ordinary Indian passport. So he again sort of looked back like this, and then went out, and he looked, and then one gentleman was also there. He said, "Come." He said, Shobna, does your passport by any way, somewhere say that you're Herbert's wife? So I said, yeah, those used to be the old part. I said, yes, yes, page so and so, the thing where it says the name of father oblique husband, you'll find Herbert's name. So the moment, so that was it. Now, then when, and then later on, a couple of other times when you were checking into hotels, they looked at you with suspicion as though I was a mistress checking in with him, and so he used to get a little like this, and so he said, look, you better do something about the name. So I said, I'm not changing the name. He says, no, but let's think of it. Can you insert a middle name or something? So I said, let me look. So I went straight to the passport office, the RPO at that time. And I said,
Yes.
hey, guys, what do we do? So then we all decided, we said, let's insert a middle name. So I said, yes, let's insert the middle name because I will not change my signature. I said, I'm not changing my name. I'm not changing my bank account. I'm not changing. Otherwise, all that thing. So he said, let's insert a middle name. So only in the passport, my middle name has now become Shovana Narayan. And the second
Right.
time it has become Shobna Traxel is when for my Aadhaar card, I had to give my passport details. So there it is also Shobna Traxel Narayan.
Sure, Traxel. Okay, that's an amazing story. Yeah, you both have gone through really a lot of excitement while traveling because of your passports, because of your name. So, like a woman like Shobna ji is like the legendary Kathak dancer of India and the globe and the world. So, usually, as Didi said, that usually in India, the men are very insecure of the wife being so, a legendary name, and you were also the ambassador. So, do you think, as a person or as a man, there was any bout of insecurity because she was the Shobna Narayan?
I'm the wrong person
That's
to
a
ask
question for all the men
because
who are watching this.
I'm the wrong person to ask about that. I never felt any particular thing. I was very happy to be married to Shobna and to be in love with Shobna. And whether she's a Kathak dancer or whether she's a secretary to the government of India or whether she is a writer or whether she's that and that, it doesn't make much difference. She has her personality, I have my personality. Um, frankly, it did not bother me from that way. I don't know how she felt about that. It did not bother me at all.
I never felt
Amazing,
anything.
amazing.
I never felt anything. I'll just, Herbert, I'm going to quote that incident of Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when long, long time ago, 28 years ago, when I got the Padma Award, Padmashri Award, then after the award ceremony, etc., the tea, so that in that room, so everybody. So Herbert was walking in, so the a gentleman, someone looked a little, so he just said, I'm Mr. Shovana Narayan. Now this is an ambassador
Ah,
coming and he says, I'm sure Mr. Shovana Narayan.
wow. So, salute to you. Salute to you, sir. Salute to you. I'll tell you, there's nobody like you. There's nobody like you. I can vouch on it. I'm sorry, I'm being very open that over here the men have so much of ego and insecurity to be called Mr. So and so by the wise end is impossible. Salute to you, sir. Love you for this. Love you for this. It's amazing. We need more men like you. We need more men like you. Amazing. Amazing. Shobnati, there's something on your gate. Something has been delivered on your gate. Could you just ask your security guard to give it to you?
Okay, wait.
Although sir is not there with you, I would have loved sir to be there with you. But yes, holistically he's there, and spiritually and emotionally he's there. And how used to be Shobna ji when she used to be in Vienna and shopping and being the typical housewife at Vienna. She took
Look,
over the kitchen.
yeah. Uh,
गेट
Dona
पे कुछ आया है
was
क्या है
a typical housewife. She never was a typical housewife. She could cook,
Okay.
didn't want very much. She could cook, she could do certain things, but all of us, we tried to be ourselves. Look, for example, I now in my retirement, I do like to cook. I just before you started with your show made my little modest lunch or something. Uh, I don't put show into categories. I think she doesn't put me into categories in that sense. And when she's in Vienna, very strangely enough, she spends a lot of time on her computer. Vienna was a good time
Okay.
for her to put some of her books, isn't it? And fine. And then we go out, we meet friends, we go to concerts, we go to the opera, we travel. I find it a very
Amazing.
normal kind of living together. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. But yes, I can't forget when me and my two sons and Soumya, we came to your home and we had a full late table of lunch and we were so hungry and Didi was like, Chalo, jaldi, jaldi lunch kha lo, have your lunch. You must be very hungry because we were coming from Budapest to Vienna and it was almost 5 or 6 hours drive and so beautifully we went out and sir showed us all the important monuments and explained the history behind all the monuments. It was amazing. It stays with my life for all my life. दीदी क्या आया कुछ आया है आ गया
केक आया है
है ना काटो
केक
और एक कुछ
केक
आया है
हाँ कहाँ केक आया है
काटो 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 there's something written also. You have to read that.
अच्छा
There's a message on the card. Oh, yes,
ओके
you're
ओके
home. It didn't take time to reach you. Yes.
या
Yes,
या
yes, yes. Okay, like
तो
having
ओके
starting
तो
a
आपने
family.
उसका उसका मतलब आपने केक भेजा है
G, G, G. Celebration of love. Celebration of
great
love of Shobna and
great
Star.
so Herbert, I'll
I
cut the cake and then and eat it, and I'll think I'm offering you a slice, yes, and to Alaknanda.
amazing.
Thank you,
Love has to
thank
be
you,
celebrated.
Th-
Thank you,
thank
Didi.
you,
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you,
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Love has to be celebrated, So, and 40
Yes.
years of love and having still the space and the respect and the experience is it's to be heard by today's generation because today has become a WhatsApp love. It happens and it disappears. It
But you
happens
know,
on the
I
WhatsApp and
there's affairs on the world. Uh, switch it off, Herbert.
Wir sind
doesn't matter.
am Fernsehen. Okay? Ich rühre mich später. Was ist? Bitte? Habe ich? Ich habe, okay. Ich rühre mich später. Okay. Bye.
Okay.
Our son.
Oh. Yes, Didi, what were you saying today? Like as I said, that it's a WhatsApp love. It happens on the love, starts on the WhatsApp and ends on the WhatsApp.
I think you have to respect each other's space and have not too many expectations. The moment you start building up and building up the other person to something like God or something, something super, obviously every person is made of positives and negatives. And I must look into myself that I'm not all positive. I have my shortcomings. So we have to live, so everything in life is in any relationship. There's a lot of adjustments to be done. Now, I'll never forget, and Herbert's very nicely, like a good husband says, I've forgotten about it. I don't remember. You know, he said, I don't remember such things. So I said, okay. When he came formally to ask my mother for my hand properly. So my mother had anyway told me that I think he's very interested in you, blah blah blah. But after asking formally for my hand, it took me 1.5 years to say yes. Fine. Also that to set it.
Wow.
So and uh, so when he said, so my mother says, yeah, I think but you've hardly met my daughter. I mean, how well do you know her? You must have seen the positive side, but she has a lot of negatives also, shortcomings. And these are some of the major shortcomings So I think you should know about it. So he says, I'm okay. He said, so do I. So he said, so do I. So that's it. That was the end of it. So
Amazing,
I was
amazing.
laughing. I said, Ma, in Hindi movies, they don't tell you the shortcomings. They only say this. She says, not at all. Not at all. You should know it.
How was ma'am's mother, Didi's mother, sir? What is your nostalgic memories of her mother? Because I've heard a lot from Shobnadi about her mother and how she is the one behind her to move into this way of direction and life. So, what is your memory of your mother-in-law?
She was a great person in that way. And you see, of course, she believed in her tradition, in her values, but she had an open mind also to others. And what I do recall very much, her influence on her family, on Shovna, on her sister, uh, way how she dealt also with Ishan. Unfortunately, she died when our son turned 5 years and that one.
Four.
So
He was four.
whatever, yeah. So
4.5.
yeah, I, I had a memory of somebody clear, extremely bright, extremely open, extremely sincere. And I can only say, unfortunately, I never had a chance to experience it very intensively because I met her, as I said, and I met Shobna at the end of my stay here. So we then talked to each other only when my short visits to India took place. I came every year about twice, say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. And then Shobna and I were traveling. She came to Vienna once. This was in 1982 or something, 83. Anyway, my experience is a great personality, which encompassed in her what you usually call about Indian values, Indian traditions.
Right, sir. Beautiful. And as Didi and sir, like the marriage that brings in the family, the children, and both of you were in distant, space. So, how did you manage to bring up your children, inculcate the values? Because I have been in your son's marriage and I have seen photographs how they're bringing up their families, the grandchildren. So, how did you manage to bring up your children together so beautifully?
We just have one son. With a long distance marriage, the two of us could
One
manage
son.
only one child.
And you have two grandchildren.
We have two grandchildren.
Yes.
So we could only manage to produce one child. And we are grateful to God for giving us that gift. And so the first 5 years of his life, he was with me. He was born here because I was working till the day he was born. And on the day he was born, from that day, my maternity leave started. And and then when he was 5, then her or 6,
Six,
was it 6?
six.
6. So when he was 6, so 6 years he was with me, and when he was 6, then Herbert took a home posting because he wanted his he, child with him. And my
Yeah.
mother-in-law, sisters-in-law, and all wanted, because he's the only child in the family, in the Traxon
Family.
family.
Okay.
So therefore, so then it was like, for me, it was heart wrenching, but it was like sending him to a boarding school. So rather than a boarding school, he's going to his father and his father.
Father.
And so he went over there, and since then he's been there. So his schooling, etc. And so, but we always, but we would, even despite the communication difficulties, we were still together, because by then we had a video camera. So we used to video each other and
Oh,
send it. That so send each other little tapes, video tapes. But those were still those old time cameras, na? So you have to send those so CDs and DVDs karke. So
yes,
that way.
yes, yes.
So it was great fun, bringing up the child. But everyone had their share in bringing up the child, because here, while he was with me and my mother was initially there, but then she died up when he was 4.5. Then, but my sister was also here. My mother, for the major part, was here with us. And then I was, of course, there. So he would travel. I would come back from office, and there he was like this with his arms holding out, and that way. Uh, and there he was with his. So I think the entire family brought him up. Uh, Not only the two
Beautiful.
of us. We had our this thing, but I must say that that every member of the family had a contribution to
Right. But Didi,
make.
like in India, like thought is that अरे माँ के बिना बच्चा कैसे रहेगा? So when your son was with sir, how did you manage up? Usually in India, it said, oh, the mother is so much needed, but you were there for your son and your family was there. So what are the difficulties that you faced, or what were the perks, or what were the positive things that you think that it helped you to bring up your son?
I think the positive thing was the commonality of values in both
Right.
families. I had, respect for the family, respect for it was like a joint family system over there, because he was there with his mother and, with his grandmother and aunts and everything, and father and everybody. So, and I think the values were the same. So, irrespective of where he was, it was the values. He got the same values didn't over here, the same values didn't over there. That was one. But whenever he needed, like for example, a couple of times he felt very ill, very ill. So immediately I took leave, flew. I was in the hospital with him, all those days. So you know, a mother is a mother, whatever happens. Um, you
Yes.
can't,
You
that
know,
time.
you have to
Yes,
face things.
exactly. Yeah. So I also remember, when he would say, actually, one major thing is that even that understanding of that little boy, when he was a child, I, I mean, his maturity and understanding, I think, is unique to him, because every child is different. Is rather that because I remember once Herbert was driving me back to the airport to take my return flight back to Delhi, and he was in the car, and there's a servant boy of ours who was also there with him, who was his playmate, boxing each other and things like that. So they were speaking in Hindi and said it would be so nice if Mama was here. So then this guy says, yes, it would be so nice. That's true, but I'm never at home. So he says, because I go early in the morning, I only come back in the evening, and she would never see me during the day. Then I'm busy, then I go to, so she would see me 2, 3 years. Now, this is a young 7, 8 year old or a 9 year old talking. And then,
Right.
then suddenly he says, and then he says, suddenly, Mama, if you were always here, how would you be called Shovana Narayan? Your name would not be Shovana
Wow.
Narayan. No. So Herbert and I exchanging glances and overhearing the conversation. And she's just smiling. But it just spoke volumes for his maturity.
He got the best of both the worlds, I believe, and
I think
children
so.
adapt very soon. They're very smart also. That they understand and they adapt to the situation, and I think he got a very holistic upbringing.
I remember once I was rather happy about it. Something in school, everybody, there was something. And my sister-in-law telling me, she says, "Look, I have to tell you this." So I said, "What?" She said, "Monica, the younger sister of mine, and sister-in-law of mine," and said, "Apparently in school, the teacher was asking if you did something very wrong to all the boys and girls, and would you go home and tell your parents that?" So every child had a different answer in whatever way. Ishan says, "Yes, I will go. I will go and tell my parents." So he said, "But aren't you scared that they'll beat you and they'll, sort of be very angry and this and that and scold you and blah, blah, blah?" So he said, "Well, again, a 7, 8 year old, 9 year old child says, yes, they will be angry. But if they're angry with me, it is for my good because that will help me to, be a better boy." So my
Wow.
sister-in-law says, she said, I said, "How did you come to know of it, Moni?" She said, "The school teacher told her."
Amazing, amazing, amazing. This is so. What do you think about today's generation? You have young people, young children around you. You have your grandchildren. You see your son. There must be their friends and everybody. Your love story is so epic. You have crossed boundaries. You have limited the space. Also, space also has not deferred you both. And but when you see today's generation in love, so what is your call on them?
Okay, let me start with one small story. Uh, I was a little bit a latecomer in our family, and I was born when my father was mid 50s, early 50s, or something like that. And he had a mother, my grandmother, of course. My father had been born in 1884. My grandmother had been born in 1864, and she lived up to 100. It was, in a way, it was very, very emotionally that you saw that in the end she wanted to turn 100. When achieved, she let go. But as I said, she was a person of the outgoing 19th century, very much in her mentality, in her way of living, and all that. And so her reaction to certain things with me, my friends coming at something was her biggest criticism, which she ever uttered, was, "I don't understand." And I think that's very sincere, but this is not judgmental. This is not something, "I don't understand, it's bad." It kind of recognizes there's another generation, and another generation which lives by their own standards. I don't say values, but their own standards, their own practices. I'm born 1940. So, I mean, I'm in technology in particular, I'm not up to the mark of people today. I have to accept it. I accept it, and one will have to accept that. What one hopes at the end, that now I say values, the values of interrelationship, of how you communicate to others, the value of being aware whatever you do reflects on others, reflects on their life. I think those are things which are important, and I do hope they are not going to change very much. They express it. I grew up in European classical music. The younger generation grows up in their music, but again, it's music. So, again, the point is accept that a newer generation is to a certain extent different to you. You can only hope that, however, in their way of behavior, of interrelationships, they stay on from there.
Beautifully. I think, sir, that you are very open-hearted and you come with a lot of understanding and you give a lot of space to the younger generation also. So your acceptance with them also is very beautiful. Didi, what about you? Because you have so many students around you, and all these girls, and there's they fall in love, but they fall out also. But what is that thing which is you feel is missing or is good in today's love story? Because we are still looking for love, because I think it's become very rare. True love, to find true love has become very rare. So how do you manage with your students and what do you guide them?
No, I mean, I joke around with my students, and if they're falling out of love, I say, "What the hell, yeah?" Yes, I always laugh and say, "Okay, but there's no such thing as perfection, okay? So remember that. As long as there's sincerity and faith within each other, but don't expect perfection. Everybody will come with some drawbacks, but see whether that person is sincere, see whether that person has values, is wedded to values, the same values.
Right.
So that is it. But that is what, so I find that even amongst today's generation, despite all the exterior that you see, you feel this, I think there is a lot of them are still ha- carry on the old tradition, and that also reflects on the kind of upbringing they've had. So
Yes.
fortunately, a lot of my students reflect that, and I insist that whatever you do in life, not only be honest to yourself, to your work, to your the self, to your, but you should know yourself. You should know your positives and your shortcomings, but also be aware of their. Don't even amongst friends. Forget about boyfriends and other friends. Any relationship, with even
Right.
relationship, not in the other way, but I'm talking even about classmates and this and that and other girlfriends. Everybody is different, and I think there's beauty in diversity. You might like something, you might not like something, but it's okay. There's beauty in
Both of
diversity, but as long as no, you should maintain the values. Don't lose sight of values. Number one, don't lose sight of a proper behavior. Even the behavioral attitude, because the body language speaks a lot. So it is an unsaid thing, but it speaks volumes. An arrogant person, whether you have to say anything or not, will it just oozes out. Arrogance oozes out miles away. So or something like just the opposite will also reach you. So I think we have to be, uh, as Herbert said, I just second what Herbert said, and I'm of the same view that their environment is different, their ways of looking at it is different, and we have to accept it. But as long as they maintain values, ethics, morals, and honesty and sincerity,
Sincerity.
and behavioral pattern, so behavior in life.
It must be. I'll ask you a question which might be very a little bit strange, but I would still like to ask. Does love need the sanction of the society or marriage or registration? Is it important that if there's a love story or if you love each other, you have to be in that system of marriage? Or do you need that sanction of marriage? Do you believe, and what would you tell to the younger generation? Those who don't want to commit too soon or are scared of commitment. So what would you say to them?
Herbert,
Hmm.
Sir,
Uh,
huh?
yeah, yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Look, emotion is one thing, but love, love. I mean, I'm not so familiar with that, but it ends up in a long-term relationship, which also creates a family. and the family should be recognized. Today, so many well-functioning families do not have the stamp of authority. But I think the important thing is that they stay together, they are there for themselves, but also for their offspring. So I'm of course brought up in the traditionality that familiarity and marriage, family and marriage is something which is important. But let's keep an open mind. There are others, and it functions quite well. But as I said, value means also social responsibility to somebody else, to other people. And I think this is for me the central issue in that way, shown now.
I agree with Herbert. We both of us may have been brought up in a with a different
Up there.
thing. Yeah. But today, as he said, we know of so many families, so many young couples, or even older couples, even our age, who have been together, who got a family, raising a family, and yet without the sanction of that paper or a stamp or something of a, but yet they are leading as happy and normal a family life as anybody else with the legal stamp. Just look at it. How many people, even with the legal family marriage stamp, are not together? Yours on paper, they are together. They might be living in the same house, but still are not together. It's
Exactly.
so it's not so. I don't think we should be judgmental on it, except for the fact, as Herbert says, that
Responsibility.
it's responsibility to yourself, to each other as a couple, and to your offsprings and to people around.
Right. So you have been very this thing that you have supported and always given support to Shonali for her dance and her ambitions and everything. What would your advice be to the young men? Because it's not like that men are very supportive of a woman ambition, especially in the society that we are living in India. So what about, I don't know about your society, how it reacts to a woman's ambition. So what would your advice be to the young men today who are in love and who are there with a beautiful lady, a lady of their choice, and want to have a lifelong relationship? Would be your advice for a successful love story and a marriage?
I think what I would always found as a key in our example, be sincere to the other, because sincerity is the basis for trust. Without trust, you cannot live together. I mean, now comes to my mind the great story of Othello, the the Admiral in Venice. The story Shakespeare did it. There's a lovely opera by Giuseppe Verdi. That one. There's a love between a colored person and a white person. There's a love. And somebody, you know, puts in the little germs of doubt, more doubt, more doubt. So at the end, there's no belief in the sincerity of the other one. It's a complex story, but that's what I said. I mean, you have to be able to live believing in the other and trusting the other. For that, again, you have to be honest with each other. So that for me is a key element. I don't know, Shobna, whether you have got other things on that.
I just say the same thing. But I think we've already said the same thing even earlier in different words. That is
Yeah.
it.
Because Didi, it is becoming very difficult, because even I have two sons, and to see the society around, and they all go through the phase of girlfriends and everything. So it's very difficult to make them understand if really this love exists, or where do they find the true love, and what is there to hold back in true love? Because it's not about just uh, good times, there are also struggles. Both of you have struggled it out also and found love, unites both of you. So sometimes I always feel that the young generation doesn't have the example of finding true love. What happens in movies is something different, but real life is different.
Let me. You bring the example, Alexander, of movies. In earlier times, it
Right.
was it was theater plays, and the theater play also paints sometimes an ideal world, but at the same time, it paints the world of problems and all that. And as I said, believe to be able to believe in the other, and also be pragmatic. If you imagine this other person has to achieve something like that, and then you are disappointed he or she doesn't do it. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. You have to find to be together in the way of thinking what the other can do. Don't push her, don't push him to find in certain directions. Accept the other in his advantages and his and her limitations. I think that's another important element.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful, sir. Wonderful. The acceptance, I think that is the biggest thing that I'm taking back from both of you. The acceptance of each other the way they are. It is, I think, the magic or the mantra of love. And it's beautiful to see yours. 40 years is like marriage is 40 years. So before that, how long did you date?
We got
So
married. We've known each other, knew each other for 2 years. As I said, we had after 6 months of
we have
knowing
been
me, he asked my,
disappointed.
and then we had, so after 2 years we got married. With and that too, the whole
Well,
courtship was long distance.
The
yes.
way I
So it
think
is
it was
42 years.
for both of us to understand and to accept that we might live in a different rhythm, in different localities, that we still keep
Yes.
together. So as Shovna said, we met. I was in Delhi after that about half a year, and then I had to go back to Vienna. And
Oh,
finally, we married, me coming out from Vienna that way. We found
because
our
nowadays to find 40 years of love.
one other
Yes,
thing
sir.
is accept that there is no general solution to love. There is no general pattern to love it. You have to find your own solution. You have to find your own pattern and something like that. But the major element is trust in that.
Major element is trust. Superb, sir. I think you have come up with so many solutions to us, and it's amazing listening to you. We love when Didi speaks and Didi explains to us, but I can imagine both of you in conversation. You must be having such a, progressive and such a conversation which is very, very on a different level. I don't know how to say it, maybe intelligent or very at a different level. The understanding that you both have is at another. Do you fight?
Well, sometimes I'm in a bad mood sometimes. So I, when I, he keeps quiet, and when he's in not in a good mood, he goes, he doesn't speak much. So I sort of, oh, okay, okay. So as he says, as he keeps saying that what you say? What is your word for it? They say that this key to successful is to have selective hearing.
You don't have to hear everything. You don't have to, and one point is you don't have to react immediately to everything. Take your good time. Find the right moment.
Perfect,
Talking about
sir.
romance,
I,
I told you I will have slowly to go somewhere. I've got some obligation in
yes,
Vienna.
sir.
So I'll have to
Just one
fade out.
moment.
Do that.
Yeah, केक काटो ना प्लीज एक मोमेंट चाहिए. And did you get the flowers also? वो पढ़ो, वो आएगा आपके
Okay,
पास
okay. I'll just get it. I'll
because
just
there's
get it.
something
Hold on.
written on it.
Okay.
Ah,
So it is great listening to you. When we were in Vienna, it was great listening to the histories that you told us all about. And today you have given us mantras, the magic of life, just not love story or marriage. I loved your quote on life, selective hearing, and then I love that thing that I don't know, like your grandmother. Yes, orchids for the couple. Yay!
thank you,
And
thank you, thank you, thank you.
and
Lots of love
here
towards
is the and here is the cake. Cake.
Ah,
yes,
thank
And there
yes,
you.
is a
yes,
card. And there is a
yes. It
card.
says something.
Now I am going to read the card. It says, love is in the air. Love is beautiful. Love is you and Sir. Love is a blessing. This is to Shovnadi and Sir Herbert from Alaknanda.
Thank you very much.
So
Thank
here it is.
you.
And this is it. And this is it.
I'm looking forward to see you again, be it in Vienna, be it in Delhi.
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you
Yes, sir.
very much for
Absolutely,
those
sir.
lovely
And
flowers and
thank
the
you
lovely
for
cake.
taking the. Thank you, sir. And thanks for accepting the invite. And it is really nice to be with you, listen to you. And I really hope there are more men like you so that it becomes a little more easier for the ladies out here. The men should learn a lot from you, sir. You're a blessing. You're a blessing. You're a blessing to us. Thank you, sir. दीदी
Thank
और चटपटी कहानी आपसे सुनेंगे.
So bye, Herbert. Bye. Say hi to
bye.
everyone.
Stay
Goodbye,
healthy.
everybody. That all the best.
Thank you,
Happy
sir.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Yes. Merry Christmas to you, sir, and Happy New Year.
Okay,
Hope that 2021 is much better
yeah,
than 2020.
I
I
swear, I swear.
hope.
Wait, sir, let me do something. ये हो जाएगा. मैं सर को हटा मैं वो कर रही हूँ.
सभी
I hope
लोग
sir.
जितने भी राम मोहन है, सभी लोग हैं, बहुत लोगों को मैंने देखा. वह सबको
जी
नमस्कार.
दीदी.
सबको नमस्कार. सभी को
बहुत
नमस्कार
सारे
जितने भी
लोग.
लोग हैं. हाँ.
जी दीदी एकदम भरा हुआ है महफिल और सब आपसे बात कर रहे हैं, सुन रहे हैं आपकी बातें और और दीदी और जानना चाहते हैं. अभी तो हम आपको छोड़ेंगे नहीं. और बताइए कि दीदी मतलब जो इतना सुंदर प्यार है आप दोनों का, मतलब और क्या ऐसा है जो हमको लगता है कि हम शायद ढूंढ नहीं पा रहे या कुछ रह गया है कि या आप पुराने प्यार में क्या कशिश है?
पुराना
नहीं
हो
दीदी
नया,
आपका
मेरे लिए
है.
तो रोज ही वो मेरे लिए तो रोज नया प्यार है. वो पुराना
और
है, मेरा नया है.
आपको लगता है कि स्पेस द थिंग अबाउट द स्पेस हेल्प्स द लव टू ग्रो?
There is no fixed recipe. No fixed recipe. Where the space, a distant space helps to this thing. But yes, when I say space, meaning the mental space that you allow the other person, give that person the space to grow, to be that
Right,
person that he oblique she is. He allows me, I allow him. So
right,
I'm not demanding. When I'm in Vienna and they say, I'm not demanding, oh, you never spend time with me. You haven't done this. Why are you busy in office? Why are you doing? He's here and when both of us were in our careers, he never said, why you going to office? Why you're doing? I remember once, let me tell you, that time I was posted in Rajya Sabha. I was the assistant returning officer for the presidential elections. And so obviously there's a lot of work. Now, from the election, holding the elections to the ballot boxes, arriving, sealed, this and that, till the counting. Those 4 5 days, I hardly came home. If at all I came home was just for a few hours because the ballot boxes were arriving and you were in, a couple of us were totally in charge of it. Now, and at that time he came for those 4 or 5 days. He managed to get leave and he came. Now, he could have said, "Why the hell are you now hardly at home?" I don't, he never saw me. He hardly saw me. I just came, I just had a quick nap, I changed and I'm back. Not a tune, not anything.
Right.
So
That's
I
what
think
the understanding of each other's work. It is also just not about somebody's space. It's also that he understood your work and you understood his work.
exactly. So many times, like where when he was ambassador here, that was the time when we were together, you know, and under one roof, more than 15 days at a time. So we were together.
Yeah.
And so now, so many times he would say, like I had a this thing, and he says, this evening, I said, I have a program. He said, yeah, but we this is something which is officially you need to be there. I said, okay. I said, you don't mind my coming in my dance costume? I won't have time to change. So he said, no. I would finish my this thing, rush and be there. And I was beside him.
Right.
That's it. So you have to understand when he needs you. For example, when he was having the presentation of credentials at Rashtrapati, now I'm the spouse. I have to be there. And just you imagine that very day, I've got my program in Modera and Rajkot and other places. That very evening, morning में, and now I'm in a fix कि अब क्या करे, अब क्या करे, अब क्या. And those were the days, when flights were not so frequent, and although open air sky had come in, this was in 97, flights were not so frequent, 98 January. So, kya kare, kya kare. And then I went to Rashtrapati Bhavan, dressed up. At that time, I'm dressed up in a costume. When in his official
Hmm.
function, he was ambassador,
Right.
I was in uh, in the Austrian clothes. So I was in my costume, and I came. I had everything ready in the car, changed, straight to airport, went, took the whatever flight was available to Bombay. I don't know how many changes I did. And then I reached and I was on stage. I literally was doing the makeup in the gadi and I was on stage. So, so you have to, he needed me at that time. I couldn't say sorry, and I couldn't cancel a big festival. So,
Love needs efforts.
yeah. So,
Without it,
and if you're sincere, you always manage to find a way. There is always a solution.
right. Yes. Yes. Uh, Maybe now as the children are growing up, and sometimes it is very difficult to explain what is love, and the media is now very open. So everything is, it is not कि दो फूल मिल रहे हैं और प्यार का बात हो रहा है. They know everything at a very tender age. They know everything.
But
So
why I feel that, yeah, they know everything. But then, as parents, you have to also caution them about the facts of life and the dangers in a friendly manner. That what are the dangers, what are the other aspects, the positives, the negatives, etc. You just have to. And I was very open with my son. So
yeah, I'm trying to find that balance because Joy has grown up. Even now, Adu is growing up. He's 13, so I can see the changes and I can understand that he's trying to understand many things of being in this growing up into youth. So it becomes very difficult sometimes to where to make them understand that what should be the limit or what should be the safety sides also, because during our times there were lots of rules and regulations, and हम एक बंध के चलते थे, पर अब वो बंधन तो कहीं पे मुझे दिखता ही नहीं है. It's become very free society, and somewhere that's why I feel that even marriage is becoming very love is becoming very rare, and marriages are not holding too long. So how to save that?
First of all, Alaknanda, from what you said, do you think it's love or what they perceive to be love?
Yes,
It is
exactly.
attraction. It is not love.
Yes,
It is
yes.
attraction, and they perceive themselves to be in love. Love is something different, but it is not just a physical attraction. And I think, no, I would say that on the first, even when I was growing up, my sister was growing up, my mother was also very, I mean, the moment you had your puberty, she talked about, you know, the limits, the do's and the don'ts, and the dangers of transgressing, certain limits and the responsibilities involved, you know. And I did the same thing with my son, exactly the same. And I think you have to,
I
they have
actually feel that love comes with responsibility.
that you have to it's not love comes with responsibility, but any relationship comes with responsibility.
Any relationship.
Because even if you have a friend relationship or a parent and child relationship, there is a responsibility towards each other. There is certain amount of, you have to have that space, that distance, that trust in that, whether it is between siblings, whether it is between a parent and a child, or a child and a beloved, on this the or you and the beloved, and this and that, whichever way you take the word relationship, you have to understand each other, trust each other, and there is a certain amount of responsibility in that. In a different way, the responsibility changes in every relationship.
Right. And 40 years, Didi, 40 years is half of our almost life, you know. And 40 years, when you look back at 40 years, what are those? I would ask, what are those five moments or the five memories that are so close to you? And I would also ask one song for Sir that you would sing.
What would I sing for him? I don't know. Earlier, when he used to drive the car, I was the non-stop radio. He said, "This radio is such thing that would never, you can't switch it off." Now I don't sing at
So,
all, you know.
what were
Uh,
the songs that you used to sing for him? और वो
God
रेडियो
don't
में
know.
आपके रेडियो में क्या क्या बजता था?
पता नहीं क्या बजती थी, जो उस समय आ जाता था दिमाग में, ऐसे वो बज जाती थी।
अच्छा,
अंग्रेजी
पर
हो,
सर को
हिंदी हो,
सोचते हुए
कुछ भी हो, कुछ भी हो।
तो अब सर को सोचते हुए आपको कौन सा गाना याद आ रहा है?
अभी कोई कुछ नहीं याद आ रहा है।
नहीं, बताओ ना.
कुछ नहीं याद आ रहा
हाँ, हाँ.
है। Yes, I can't sing for nuts anymore. There was a time when I could sing, but now I cannot sing. So period. Ask
No,
me
no,
to
no.
dance, I'll
अच्छा,
dance it out.
अच्छा, अच्छा, आप गाना बोलो, मैं गा दूँ. But tell me what do you think? कौन सा गाना आपको याद आ रहा है? मैं गा देती हूँ.
अभी अब वो क्या आ रहा है? Bésame mucho. Each time I cling to your kiss, I hear music divine. Bésame, bésame mucho. Kiss me, my darling, and say that you'll always be mine. This joy is something new, my arms enfolding. You never knew this thrill before. Whoever thought I'd be holding you close to me, whispering it's you I adore. Dearest one, if you should leave me, each little dream would take wings and this life would be true. Bésame, bésame mucho. Love me forever and say that you'll always be
Thank you, Didi. Thank you so much.
true.
Your love
That's
is
it.
so special. And Piyush, Didi ne गा दिया, Didi ne गा दिया, Didi ne गा दिया. So it is like on this lovely song, I would say, Didi, I love you so much. And
Thank
people
you.
love you for who you are. And today's day is so special to me that both of you came and spoke because I talk to all my students, my friends, even Piyush se meri baat hoti hai, yaar नहीं सच्चा प्यार नहीं है, but seeing you and sir and all the couples that have come,
वो पीयूष तो
you
था
start.
अभी मैंने पीयूष को देखा पीयूष हाय wherever
Ji,
you are hi
yes.
yes
But these 7 days have been all about love stories, and it started with the youngest couple, Tribhuvan and Rajini, Maharaj's grandson, and this thing. So it's like each stage, 2 साल की शादी, फिर 4-5 साल की शादी, फिर 30 साल की शादी, अब की 40 साल की शादी, and just not shadi. It is the love which binds you, which unites you, and still, still, whenever we meet you, we can see love. Like, in fact, in Vienna also, when we came, sir had given us space, and we were like talking. We three, even Soumya's student was also there, and we four were talking, giggling like little girls, and girly talks. And sir was very happy with Joy, and they were having their own political discussions. And then he came in with tea and cake. So that love for each other. Okay, Shobnaji's students have come, and giving that space, and you can feel love, you can see love, and it makes you believe in love. Tamanna is saying couldn't get more romantic. Lovely to hear you, Shobna Di. I think
thank you
this
Tamanna
whole
thank you Mhm.
so I love this series, Didi Love Story, and you are the most celebrated couple. I said you are my Christmas couple, and thank you for
thank
sharing
you
your
sir.
story with us
Thank you
because
Alexander
it's your
thank you
personal moment. It's your
I love
personal
your
moments.
I love your vivacity. I love your sincerity. I love your love. And I love that warmth of yours in which you embrace the whole world. Lovely indeed. Keep it up
Thank
like
you.
that.
It's your
Don't
it's
ever
your mistake.
change.
Yes,
Lovely.
Didi.
Thank you.
Keep it like
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you,
you.
Didi, and a Merry
Thank you.
Christmas to you and a Happy New Year to you. And I hope,
Thank you.
as you say, 2021 should be better and no COVID, no more viruses around, and so that we can meet and hug each other. So,
Absolutely.
thank.
Thank you.
So
Thank
that
you to
was
everyone.
the
Thank you.
thank you. And thank you, audience, for being there all 7 days and listening to the love stories of such beautiful couples. Thank you for being there today. And it is amazing the way that you are along with the season. Oops, I said it, and love stories was definitely so very much special because we all are looking for love. Love binds everybody, and love unites everybody. Thank you. We will be back soon, but in the new year, let's see what new year brings to us. And as I always say, a very good night, but COVID nahi gaya hai, so please abhi bhi mask pehniye, wash your hands, keep distance, and pray and sleep. So goodbye and see you soon again in the new year. Bye, Didi. Thank you so
Bye,
much.
bye, bye, bye to everyone. Bye.
Pranam,
Thank you,
pranam.
thank you, Pranam, Pranam.
Thank you, Didi. Thank you.